Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I've always loved gadgets and the latest technology, so I'm constantly browsing eBay for good deals. When I came across a new iPhone model selling for half the normal retail price, I jumped on it. The listing said it was an open box item in mint condition. Seemed like a great bargain. The seller had solid feedback scores too, so I felt good as I clicked buy it now and eagerly awaited my shiny new toy. When the package arrived a few days later, I tore it open like a kid on Christmas morning. But as soon as I pulled out the phone, my excitement crumbled. The thing was scratched up pretty bad with several cracks across the screen. It looked nothing like the pristine condition promised in the listing. It was clearly used a lot. I immediately started the return process through eBay, but the seller wasn't having it. They refused to accept a return or even partial refund. That's when I started to get a bad feeling about this whole deal. No way would an ethical seller pawn off a VF phone as mint. Was it possible this thing was obtained illegally? Not wanting to directly accuse anyone, I simply opened a fraud complaint with eBay to get my money back. But the very next day, I got a knock on my door from the police. They'd had tracked this phone as stolen property and wanted to collect it from me. My stomach dropped realizing I had unwittingly received hot merchandise. Apparently, this was part of an organized theft ring targeting smartphones to sell on eBay. The police had been trying to crack it for months. The seller I bought from was a phantom account likely operated by the ringleaders. They would list the boosted phones as open box to cover for the obvious wear and tear. Then they'd refuse returns and vanish when people complained. My mind raced with scary thoughts. What if these thieves came looking for their score when I turned the phone over to cops? The officer assured me I was safe and did the right thing by reporting it, but I still felt anxious knowing my money went to some criminal operation that now had my name and address. In the following weeks, I worried about every unfamiliar car that drove down my street. I knew it was irrational, yet couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I was being watched, that at any moment someone dangerous would show up at my door. I checked eBay obsessively to see if that seller account popped back up with more phones. Was I now caught up as a witness working with police to bust these crooks? Would they see me as a threat needing to be silenced? It was seriously paranoid, but hey, truth is often stranger than fiction, right? For legal reasons, the cops couldn't share too many details with me about the bust, so I had no clue if arrests were made or if the crew was still at large. Tech logs reported a major phone heist ring being broken in the city around that time, but names weren't named. For all I knew, those slimy sellers just moved operations to another platform without getting caught. At night, I imagined angry criminals lurking outside my home plotting revenge over their profits lost. During the day, I jumped whenever my phone rang from an unknown caller, expecting threats and demands for retribution. It all seemed so dramatic, totally not my normal anxiety level. But having your personal space violated like that can really mess with your head. Someone virtually reached into my home through online access, ripped me off, got me tangled up in their criminal doings against my will or knowledge. That sense of security we all take for granted was seriously shaken. Perhaps I was doubly traumatized knowing I helped fund their illegal enterprise. That awful realization I aided their success by forking over my hard-earned money to thieves just compounded feelings of vulnerability and violation. It almost would have been easier to accept if I were somehow forced against my will. But I literally welcomed crime into my home, contributed my small part to keep those crooks in business. Not cool. Anyway, it's been about a year since my eBay incident, and I suppose I don't fret about phantom stalkers as much nowadays. I definitely report any sketchy sellers I come across to help prevent others getting sucked into stuff like I did. I also only deal with top-rated sellers now, even if it means higher prices. Guess I learned the hard way that unbelievable deals can sometimes be just too good to be true. But one other lingering effect is I still feel kinda gross about my role as an unwitting accomplice to the whole mess. Like maybe I shouldn't be so quick to grab at deals without questioning why they're so cheap. Contributing to problems rather than solutions in this world burdens my conscience. So trying to break that bad habit of only thinking about scoring bargains for myself at any moral cost. The old saying about being penny-wise but pound-foolish comes to mind here. At least I can use my experience to educate others. Share this tale as a cautionary warning that criminals often hide in plain sight these days behind slick online storefronts. Don't let it turn you off eBay altogether, though. Just encourage you to keep a skeptical, discerning eye when surfing those e-commerce seas. If the deal seems fishy at all, best move on to the next. Plenty of legit bargains from fake sellers are still there for the taking if you look carefully. Maybe my story provides some value after all, as others learn from my mistakes. Helping fellow consumers make better choices feels empowering after being in victim mode for so long. While I can't undo my contribution to those thieves, I can help prevent history repeating and additional funds going their way. So in the end, speaking out feels kinda heroic. I've collected vinyl since I was a kid. There's just something magical about those crackly recordings on big black discs. So when I discovered a super rare blues album on eBay, I went nuts trying to win it. This was the holy grail of records, rumored to have only 50 copies pressed back in 1930s. The bidding was intense as multiple collectors like me drove up the price, but I just had to own this gem, mint copy surfacing after decades unseen. When I finally won with my outrageously high bid, I felt giddy as a lottery winner. This was the crown jewel every vintage music nerd dreamed of, now all mine. The record arrived in a creaky old cardboard sleeve, faded and worn by the years. Carefully sliding out the fragile vinyl, I inspected every groove under bright light for the prized pristine condition I paid for. Perfect, not a single scratch or scuff mark in sight. This beauty looked freshly pressed, untouched by human hands after its long, mysterious journey. Eagerly, I set the record atop my turntable and queued up track one. The crisp crackle and pop gave way to plaintive guitar strains, the rich, soulful voice crooning age-old blues. Entranced by the insane rarity of hearing these sounds, I left the vinyl spinning as I wandered through my house attending chores, lost in a blissful reverie. After several minutes, a strange thud interrupted my folk blues heaven. I spun around to see a framed print fallen off the living room wall. Weird. It was securely anchored and level. Shrugging it off, I rehummed the print and got lost again in my music as more songs played. Until I heard a louder crash, this time from upstairs. What the heck? I dashed to the staircase, finding shattered glass near a missing framed picture of Jesus I kept in the upstairs hall. Seriously, how was that possible? Scooping up the broken mess in confusion, I suddenly felt very uneasy having this strange phenomenon sync with the arrival of my priceless blues vinyl. Returning downstairs greatly perplexed, I saw yet another wall hanging askew. Now my imagination reeled with odd scenarios. Grave robbers stealing this album from some Louisiana cemetery where early bluesmen were laid to rest. Recordings secretly embedded with voodoo spells to hex its listeners. Or a tortured bluesman's soul haunting these grooves for disturbing his resting place by playing them. I laughed nervously at my foolish fancies, worsened by watching too many horror flicks late at night. Still, though, the falling art was undeniably bizarre. I couldn't explain it rationally, no matter how I tried. Definitely made me view this record in a more ominous light from then on. Things only got weirder and scarier when I dug deeper into its history. The original recording session occurred under equally mysterious circumstances back in 1938, involving a little-known music entrepreneur and group of blues legends summoned to an abandoned plantation studio. Their music that fateful night was impossibly good, almost inhumanly good, as if conjured from thin air. Soon after, the producer along with a couple musicians disappeared without a trace, never to be seen again. Other shocking rumors suggested something supernatural took place during that session, though details remained unclear. The surviving musicians refused to discuss it, fleeing town immediately after to never return again. Fast forward 80-some years, and here I was now, the current caretaker of those strange musical recordings made that evening. Did I unwittingly bring some force into my own home by playing them? I couldn't shake creeping sensations of being watched whenever I spun that vinyl. More odd events escalated. Books flying from shelves, lights flickering, footsteps overhead late at night. Each instance evoking a cold, unnatural terror that something sinister stirred in my house. Part of me wanted to destroy the record or sell it right away online to be rid of whatever malevolent presence it carried. but I couldn't bring myself to part with something so unique, valuable, and beautiful in its magical musicality. I had to find out the truth. Through intense research, I learned about voodoo and hoodoo rituals historically used by early blues artists to channel otherworldly energy into their songs. Some claim to willfully trap dark spirits in their recorded music as malicious curses against any who later exploited their talent for profit. Could my priceless album contain one of these dangerous hex recordings that, in releasing now, somehow unleashed its wrath decades later? As bizarre as it sounded, no other explanation made sense given the intensifying poltergeist activity that accompanied my listening sessions. Perhaps in my greedy quest for rare vinyl, I foolishly acquired an artifact with an insidious power to unleash evil into this world. A force twisting the joy of music into something chaotic and threatening. An antithesis to the creative act. Something now haunting me through disturbances escalating in venom. Destroying the record could stop the mayhem and protect others from the same dark fate. But how does one even dispose of a demonic object? I couldn't just dump this at a thrift shop for some hapless buyer to find, nor torch it for toxic fumes from the vinyl chemicals released. For now, I've stashed the album deep underground in my cellar crawl space, sealed in a blessed box, covered in rosaries and holy oil. No more falling art or menacing bumps since hiding this haunted musical relic from sight and earshot. But I still fear its undiscovered power festering silently below my home, not fully contained. Sometimes at night I swear I hear the cellar door creaking open, muffled footsteps on the floorboards, a phantom blues guitar wailing softly in the darkness. I sell old vintage toys on eBay as a little side hustle, so I'm always getting packages shipped to my house with inventory I bought online to resell in my own shop. No big deal, I know the drill. But last week I received a surprise box with no return address or record of me purchasing its contents. Weird, right? The mystery only got stranger and way more disturbing from there. The box itself seemed harmless enough, plain brown cardboard similar to postal packaging. My address was handwritten in uneven scrawl, but with an accurate tracking number underneath. Once opened, I found a mess of old newspaper loosely wadded up. Pawing through, I felt an unknown heavy object wrapped inside. Figuring it was someone's damaged shipment redirected my way incorrectly, I shrugged and unwrapped the item. But what tumbled out into my hands made my heart literally skip several beats. It was a translucent Ziploc filled about halfway with some kind of powdery white substance. No note, no labels, nothing. Just this bag of mystery grains that could be anything from the white coke to sugar for all I knew. I froze in disbelief and confusion, my imagination racing through various freaky scenarios. Was this a threat from some random psycho? Maybe a warning message from neighborhood gangs? What if eBay got hacked and my address leaked to the dark web's most sinister buyers? Had to be something illegal and dangerous for sure, given the super sketchy nature of this delivery. Heart pounding, I racked my brain trying to think what exactly one does upon receiving identified mystery substances by mail. Call local police seemed most prudent, so I dialed 911 recounting the whole chain of weird events. The operator took down all my info and said officers would arrive promptly to investigate. In the meantime, she instructed me not to go near or touch the package again in order to preserve forensic evidence like fingerprints and such. Of course I was way ahead of her there. No desire whatsoever to get any closer to that thing that I already regrettably had. The next hour waiting for cops felt surreal and terrifying as my anxious thoughts raced. With access to my address, was I being watched right now? Would whoever sent this come back to get me if the police couldn't trace it back to a source? The possibilities were endless and freaked me out big time. When officers finally arrived, I showed them the shipping box, crumpled newspaper, and the offensive baggie found inside. They examined everything closely using gloves and tools without disturbing fingerprints. But other than the missing sender info, nothing revealing or suspicious stood out. One cop carefully emptied a tiny bit of the powder into a test kit while I held my breath. Pleased that it be benign, I prayed silently. But according to the device, the substance came back positive for narcotics. Oh boy. Guess my innocent little mail scare just turned into a vile felony situation quick. Now adrenaline and panic kicked into overdrive, realizing I just handled a controlled drug substance unknowingly. This changed the stakes of my mystery drastically. As police bagged up the items for evidence and questioned me, my mind raced imagining all sorts of dangerous conclusions. I provided all known names, addresses, and recent online purchase details I could recall, desperate to make sense of this shocking discovery. Surely whoever sent this intended the dangerous contents for someone else. Maybe a decoy recipient to throw authorities off busting bigger dealers. In that case, what would prevent them from still silencing me as the accidental witness who foiled it all? Overwhelming fear of violent retribution from vengeful narcotics criminals consumed every waking thought in days afterwards. Especially since police found no solid leads yet from evidence or my testimony. Meanwhile, lab tests confirmed a trafficable amount of illegal substances shipped, not just random pocket residue. Given my zero association with anything drug-related, investigators kept hitting dead ends trying to connect dots. And still no suspects emerged matching identities I suggested as possible eBay buyer enemies out for weird retaliation by sending contraband my way. It made no sense for online consumer grudges to escalate into federal offenses. Yet nothing else logical explained why or how this landed on me out of the blue. I couldn't rest for constantly awaiting the other shoe to drop with threatening demands about keeping quiet. Visions of masked gunmen kicking down my door dominated restless dreams at night. During daylight, I triple-checked locks and peered through windows, often to confirm no strange vehicles lingered near the property. Maybe paranoia got the better over reason in my reaction. But how else do you process becoming an unwilling drug mule for some unknown criminal enterprise? My safety felt jeopardized being left as loose end needing to disappear once the foul contents got traced back. Weeks turned into months with still no breaks in the case. The lack of answers almost worsened imagination, run wild envisioning chilling possibilities. Eventually, though, I stopped jumping at every odd sound or passing car as months stretched on quietly. No concrete threats ever came. Just lingering unease when I recalled that innocuous-looking box starting this whole mess. Police closed the inactive investigation until new evidence surfaced, and I tried resuming everyday routines despite awkwardly looking over my shoulder more often, wary of being watched by hidden enemies. Honestly not sure if I'll ever fully relax about this. Any mystery package going forward amps up nerves about repeat events or messages tied back to it somehow. Sure makes me see delivery companies in an ominous new light too. Who's to say more contraband won't land at my door given lax screening procedures that allowed this first package through filled with illegal shocks? Kind of feels inevitable I'll receive another unexpected gift from the criminal underworld, seeking to make me disseminator of their shady debris. So for now I watch and wait uneasy wondering if the other shoe will eventually drop. Will I wake up to find my home surrounded by a SWAT raid to arrest me as drug kingpin? Get strong-armed by violent gangsters insisting I keep quiet forever about their activities? Maybe I'll just let imagination keep writing the evolving story chapters in this mystery's absence. Either way, I'll certainly never view mail delivery innocently again.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.